Time family, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to talk about why this will be the last episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. As you all know, things have been pretty tense here in America lately, and the status quo is being challenged all over the place. Since the beginning of this podcast, Tim and I have always addressed the ways in which the Wheel of Time is problematic when viewed through the lens of today. The world is a very different place than it was 30 years ago when The Eye of the World was first published.
You could still love something while admitting that it has flaws, and that has been our approach this whole time. However, while we still love The Wheel of Time and will still read the books, we no longer feel that a podcast highlighting the series is appropriate in the current climate. This largely boils down to two issues. We want to talk about them with you so that you can understand why we feel we need to step away.
Mm-hmm. The biggest issue I have always had with the Wheel of Time is the Shanshan and their Domine, specifically how they are allowed to continue to keep their system of slavery at the end of the book, despite knowing the truth that Soldum can also channel. I want to read a couple of pages from A Memory of Light. I have not come here to destroy you. I come to you now to offer you peace, Empress. I have come without armies. I have come without force. I have come because I believe that you need me as I need you. Rand stepped forward and remarkably went down on one knee, bowing his head, his hand extended. I extend my hand to you in alliance. The last battle is upon us. Join me and fight. I'm going to skip a little bit further down. What is your offer? Tuon asked. Peace, Rand said, standing, hand still out. Peace for 100 years. Longer, if I can make it so. I have persuaded the other rulers to sign a treaty and work together to fight the armies of the Shadow. I would have my borders secured, Tuon said. Altara and Amadesia shall be yours. Terabon and Almouth Plain as well, Tuon said. I hold them now. I will not be forced from them by your treaty. You wish peace? You will give me this. Terabon and half of Almouth Plain, Rand said, the half you already control. I would have all of the women this side of the Aerith Ocean who can channel as Domine, Tuon said. Do not strain your luck, Empress, Rand said dryly. I will allow you to do what you will in Shanshan, but I will require you to relinquish any Domine you have taken while on this land. Then we have no agreement, Tuon said. Matt held his breath. Rand hesitated, hand lowering. The fate of the world itself could hang on this, Fortuana. Please. If it is that important, she said firmly, you can agree to my demand. Our property is our own. You wish treaty? Then you will get it with this clause. We keep the Domine we already have. In exchange, I will allow you to leave in freedom. Rand grimaced. You're as bad as one of the sea folk. I should hope I'm worse, Tuon said, no emotion in her voice. The world is your charge, dragon, not mine. I care for my empire. I will greatly need those Domine. Choose now, as I believe you said your time is short. Rand's expression darkened. Then he thrust his hand outward. Let it be done. Light be merciful. Let it be done. I will carry this weight too. You may keep the Domine you already have, but you shall not take any from among my allies while we fight the last battle. Taking any afterward who are not in your own land will be seen as breaking the treaty and attacking the other nations. Tuon stepped forward, then took Rand's hand in her own. Matt let out his breath. Rand knows that this is wrong. It's obvious by the way he hesitates, asks the light to have mercy on them, and says that he will carry the weight of this burden as well. He is literally fighting for the fate of the world, and he needs the Shanshan, so he trades human lives for their cooperation. It's a terrible situation for Rand to be in, and Tuon can burn in hell for it. She knows for a fact that Soldum can learn to channel, meaning that she herself has the potential to channel. There is no difference between a Domine and the Empress herself, but she insists on risking the fate of the world so that she can continue to treat people as property. The Dark One can win and they can all die as long as she is allowed to keep treating people as less than human. Not only is she allowed to get away with this, but she's married to a popular main character and pregnant with an heir. So the implication is that her empire will continue. It's a happy ending for the Shanshan in general and Tuon specifically, where the status quo of slavery and domination is maintained. This is not okay.
Yeah. So, the situation reminds me of our own U.S. history. Like, even going back to the time of the Articles of Confederation, slavery was a contentious issue. They compromised because they needed the South to finance the cost of the Northern Industrial Complex building weapons and other items for the Revolutionary War. Mm-hmm. Slavery was something that some of the Founding Fathers believed was a necessary evil they could deal with later. In 1786, the Constitution of the United States was ratified, and the linchpin issue was taxation based upon population. However, the number of slaves in the South made population in those areas higher for the Southern states, and the South saw this as property tax, not population. They made a concession that both sides could agree on, that slaves would be counted as 3/5 of a person. The U.S. needed the plantations in the South to feed the country, and Britain was already trying to test the Treaty of Paris in the North, so again, slavery would have to wait. And you may have noticed a pattern here. Even those who strongly held the belief that slavery was wrong made deals and compromises, hoping the future generations would fix it. But it just kept getting pushed off. Mm-hmm. They kept waiting for the world to change, and the world never does change unless people stand up and change it. Flashing forward, the Civil War officially ended in April of 1865. By December of 1865, Congress passed the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery. However, this didn't stop Southern states from passing laws prohibiting black people from being treated as American citizens. The right to vote was not granted to black men until 1870. The point of this history lesson is that it took from 1777, when the Articles of Confederation were drafted, until 1870, when the 15th Amendment passed, for America to offer the same rights and privileges to black men as it did for white men. And all because we had to win a war, and the hope that someone would change it later. And as we all know, racial inequality did not end with abolishing slavery or granting the right to vote. If you spend centuries viewing people as property, as less than human, it seeps into everything and does just not go away with a flip of a switch. We are still living with the ripple effects today of our founding fathers allowing slavery to continue when establishing this country. Jordan and Sanderson aren't doing anyone any favors by putting Rand in the same situation, having him make the same mistakes we made. In fact, since Rand is the Messiah character of the Wheel of Time and someone we are supposed to root for and see as good, in a way, it's condoning the decisions that allow slavery to continue. The Wheel of Time does not exist in a vacuum, so it's not unreasonable to make that correlation.
You may be asking yourself why we're bringing this up now, when we knew what happened with the Shanshan before we started this podcast. Well, back in Season 2, Episode 21, we did talk a little about how uncomfortable the Shanshan storyline makes us, especially the way Jordan gave us sympathetic Shanshan characters that show that slave owners aren't all bad. This has never been a part of the story that was easily digestible, and one that we never shied away from addressing. But in the light of the Black Lives Matter movement and recent protests, and the general shaking up of our established systems of othering people and treating them as less than, it's not enough to just talk about how the storyline makes us uncomfortable. I strongly believe, and we have previously stated in this podcast, that silence is acceptance. Complacency makes you complicit. I don't know what Jordan's intent was with the Shanshan, but slavery isn't a gray area. Maybe he was trying to say not all slavers are bad guys. Maybe not. But whatever he intended, that is the implied message with how the Shanshan shook out. And I want to say unequivocally, that is 100% bullshit. Yes, all slavers are bad guys. No ifs, ands, or buts.
And one thing that you have to keep in mind here is that these books are fiction. No matter what happens in real life, this was a choice made by both Jordan and Brandon Sanderson.
Yes.
I've seen excuses from people saying that Rand didn't have a choice and that he would have lost the battle if he hadn't made this deal. That may be true, but only because the authors made it true. This was a choice and it could have gone another way. The Shanshan were set up to have a different ending.
Right?
With Rena and Seta being discovered, collared, and Eganon learning from Nynaeve and Elaine that certain women can learn to channel even if they weren't born that way, and then Tuon herself discovering the truth. It all could have gone a different way.
Yeah.
We didn't need to see the change play out, and obviously Tuon wouldn't want her empire to collapse. But even a line or two saying that she recognized a change needed to be made. And when this was all over, she would go back to Shanshan and rebuild her torn nation into something bigger and better, and a new direction would have made all of the difference. I've heard that Jordan originally planned a spin-off series with Matt and Tuon, but at a certain point he had to have realized he wasn't going to live long enough to write it. With that knowledge, he and Sanderson should have taken a different path. It was a choice to let the Shanshan slavery continue. And it was the wrong choice. And not one that we want to prop up here in 2020.
100%. The other part of the Wheel of Time that isn't sitting well right now is simply the circular nature of the pattern. Time is a wheel, which means that no matter how hard our beloved characters fight, no matter what sacrifices they make, and no matter how epic their victory is, it kind of doesn't matter because the pattern is going to reset and humanity is going to end up right back where it started.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that setup per se, but here in the year of our Lord 2020, where it feels like we're back in 1968 with the civil rights unrest, or 1918 with our viral pandemic, or the 1940s with our fascist dictator of a president spouting Nazi propaganda, we need to get off this wheel.
Yeah.
We need change and forward progression. What we do not need is to maintain the status quo. We need to get free of this merry-go-round and burn it to the ground.
Yeah.
So all that to say, this particular story isn't one that we feel should be highlighted or propped up right now.
We want to be clear that we're not saying the Wheel of Time is bad or that it's wrong to like or love the Wheel of Time.
Right, yeah.
We will still be reading the books, and we both still love the story. We're also not saying that no one should ever discuss the Wheel of Time. We're still looking forward to the TV show, and there may be time in the future when it'll be more appropriate to deep dive into the Wheel of Time. But we both feel that right now is not the time for our voices to be heard talking about this series. There's a better use of our time and our resources. There are many stories that are more deserving of attention and many voices that are more deserving of attention than ours right now.
Yeah.
Are we saying the Wheel of Time is pro-slavery and that Robert Jordan is a racist? No, we're not. But we are saying that he made a choice to show people in Randland making the exact same mistakes we've seen in our past as Americans. And if you want to say that we are the next age or this book is the next turning of the wheel after us, either way, Jordan chose not to end slavery for the Shanshan Empire, or even give it a vehicle to make it happen later. And right now, this is not the story we feel comfortable spending our time propping up on a podcast. I, as a white man, feel that it's imperative that I not stay silent on important issues. In addition, there's a difference between not speaking out when I see something wrong and adding noise into a space that competes with important things other people are trying to say. The Wheel of Time and this podcast is not where the focus should be right now. I feel honored that people have found our podcast and they've enjoyed listening to us, but I feel the right thing to do is step aside and not add more distractions at a time when we need to be focusing on listening to the people around us.
Yeah. Thank you for coming with us on this ride. We have loved reading your emails and tweets, and we've appreciated all of you who took the time to reach out to us. Thank you for listening and for caring. We are keeping our email open, so if you want to tell us what you think, you can still find us at wattpod@gmail.com. I'm not sure what we're going to do with our Libsyn account, so we don't know how long the podcast will be up, but if you want to listen to past episodes, you can find them on our Wheel of Time Pod-Thru channel on YouTube. The link will be in the show notes. There may be no beginnings or endings to the turning of the Wheel of Time, but this is an ending. Thank you all.